Hello and welcome to this video series on HTML for Beginners. Now we're approaching the finish line in our video series of HTML for Beginners, and one of the things I wanted to cover before we send our website live is how to determine a good hosting company for our website, where to purchase a domain name, and a good way to determine a domain name to purchase, and also how to publish our website as well, how to get it from our computer to the internet. So let's go ahead and jump on into this and cover what some may consider to be obvious points, but I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page before we send our website live. Now, I would of course be remiss if I did not mention to you that you should do a lot of research on your own before sinking money into a hosting service and or buying domain names. So I'm going to kind of scratch the surface on the obvious, and that would be to do a Google search or a search using your favorite search engine on reviews of this web hosting service or that web hosting service. And even better than that would be to do a check on forums. The Warrior Forum is probably the best as far as getting unbiased information from people that have used particular web hosting companies and where do they buy their domain names from and why. So those are some awesome ideas as far as before you spend money, where to go to get the information. Because I don't want to come across trying to sound like I'm promoting one company over another. I just want to bring it to the light that you're going to need a hosting company, you're going to need a domain name, and you're going to need a means to get the files from your computer to your web server or to the internet. So that being the FTP client, which I'm going to be describing using FileZilla, which is a free open source program. Again, it's called an FTP client, not an FTP server. FTP client is what you want. Now then, depending upon which service you're going with, there are companies out there like, for example, this one, couponsnexus.com, that can offer you coupons, and by all means it's worth a check on knocking off some bucks of your initial expense of getting your hosting company set up. Let me see, there's review sites out there that do not appear to be biased. I'm sorry, yeah, that's the right word. They are unbiased or appear to be so. So you want to check those out as well. But again, I think the best place you're going to get unbiased information on web hosting companies and purchasing domain names is from forums and groups, or Google groups, for example. Now, one thing too you want to consider is the control panel. It may not seem that obvious at first, but coming from somebody that's used services out there that do not have cPanel as a control panel, take it from me, you want to use a service that has cPanel as a control panel. Makes things much more easy. Anyway, so cPanel, forums, and Google groups for determining the best place to go to get your web hosting company and domain names, and of course coupons out there to save you some extra money for your services or the web hosting services. One place I do want to mention is instantdomainsearch.com. These guys are awesome insofar as checking beforehand if your idea of a domain name is available or not. You also want to consider in your domain name to throw in keywords, if at all possible, to help make your website more search engine friendly. Keywords in your domain name is probably the first place to consider putting keywords, not just throughout your website, but in your domain name. That's probably one of the more important things I would consider in determining my domain name. And another thing to consider in the domain search process is that, like real estate, they don't make them anymore. Once a domain name is snagged up, it's gone until that person decides to sell it. And sometimes people are buying these domain names for thousands or even millions of dollars, for crying out loud. So that's the importance of domain names. If you've got an idea on a domain name, use a service like Instant Domain Search to see if your domain name is available. And if it is not, if it's already taken, then here's some ideas. I mean, you may want to see who owns it. You might want to be nice to them and send them an email, say, hey, if you're not using this, maybe you can consider selling it to me for X number of dollars. Now then, if it is available, then what I suggest, and this may come across as an endorsement, whatever, I would suggest only sticking with oneandone.com, not for web hosting services, but to buy your domain names. I've had bad experiences with GoDaddy, and Namecheap is another one that is good. I've not heard anything bad about Namecheap.com, but it's just that their prices will not come anywhere close to one-on-one.com. That's about as far as the endorsement process I'm going to get. There are good places and not so good places to buy your domain names from. Again, that's something you want to consider when asking those questions in the Google groups and the forums online as far as where to get your web hosting service and your domain names. Now then, GoDaddy and Nameboy are good places to go and get ideas about domain names, but not so much what I would suggest to spend money in buying your domain names from. The accuracy here for nameboy.com, for example, on what they are saying is available, I have found to be not very accurate. So take this with a grain of salt. But it is a good place to go and get ideas about additional variations of what you wanted to have as a domain name but is now taken. Well, GoDaddy and Nameboy are a couple of good places to go to get additional ideas. Now then, as far as getting your information from your computer to the internet, there's a whole bunch of free services out there, or FTP clients as they're called, to the point where until you get comfortable with one, or you just gotta spend some money on one, there's plenty of free ones. The one that I would go with the most, and the one that I went with the most until I had a couple of bucks put away and I could buy one, is FileZilla. It's an open source program, and SourceForge.net is a place where I go frequently, and this is the place where if you're going to have open source or free, awesome free software, this is the place to go to check it out. You just go here, put in a search for FTP client, and chances are pretty good FileZilla is going to pop up right at the top. And you want FileZilla client, and in which case too you want to download it. I don't believe they give you any options here. You're only going to get this one, because sometimes they also give you options based on the operating software that you have, whether it's Linux or Windows or whatever, Mac. But in this case, you just download this, and of course you can also download it from here too. Either way, but it's the same one, because this was just updated the other day, August 30th. That's the version as of the taping of this video. But once you've got it installed, you can just double click on it, open it up, and there's plenty of video tutorials on the web to go into great detail on how to use an FTP client. They're all basically the same. Some just work better than others. Again, I find that for the free ones, FileZilla is number one in my book, but you're going to need the host name, you're going to need the username, and you're going to need the password. 99% of the time the port is going to be 21. So the information here, host, user, and password, this information is stuff you're going to get from your web hosting company upon signing up. Just a little hint, one thing that I would consider highly in determining who I go with as far as my web hosting company is the customer service. Can I understand them? Do they understand me? So one way you might want to do this is to initiate some kind of a conversation with them, a dialogue. And a good one to start off with is call them up, send them an email. Frankly, I would want to call them up, because if they don't have an 800 number, then I would just scratch them off of my short list. But call them up and ask them, okay, once I get signed up with you guys, I'm going to need a host name, a username, and a password for my FTP client. Where do I get that information from? Are you going to just give it to me over the phone? Or are you going to send it to me in an email? Just what? And then they'll tell you where to expect to get this information from once you've paid them the money and get signed up. But once you get that information, plug it in here. Again, you're going to have this on just about any FTP client you're going to come across, but it's going to ask for a host name, a username, and a password. But again, to get deeper into how to use FileZilla, just do a search on Google for FileZilla FTP client video tutorial, and like I said, you'll come across several of them. As a matter of fact, I've got a couple of them that I think are pretty good on YouTube. So who knows, maybe you'll hear me telling you how to use it. But that's pretty much it. Again, I just wanted to brush over these. Didn't want to go into great detail on how to use this, on how to choose a web hosting company, or how to get a domain name, but just some ideas on the best way for you to go about and get these tasks done. So hopefully you've learned something here with this short little video. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and we're going to cover in the next video some ideas on how to make some money once your website is up and live. So thank you much for watching. Have a great day.